Hi guys, welcome to our live session. If you are joining us for the first time, joining me for the first time, let me introduce myself. My name is Carrie Tracy. I'm the teacher author behind feelgoodteaching.com as well as stemchallenge.com. And I love STEM challenges. That is one of my biggest focuses, and that is what we're going to be talking about today, is quick and easy STEM worth your time. So I have lots of things to say about this topic, and I really want to start off by saying I think it's really important to know the tone that we're coming into this with. So I want us to think of this as a time to reflect, because especially as you're getting into the new school year, some of you have already gone back, some of you are going back next week. It's really hard to find the time to reflect on your practice, right? And it's so important and it's so beneficial when we actually get the time to do it. So let's think of today as a time to reflect and really think about our approach, because I am going to suggest to you that I find the idea of quick and simple STEM, or quick and easy or simple STEM, I think of it very much like these old-timey exercise belts, right? So I'm going to unpack this a little bit more as we go on, but before I do that, I just want to also tell you that, as per usual, a lot of the time when I do my live sessions, I like to throw in some treats at the end. There will be an opportunity to get some giveaways, and you're going to want to tune into the end for all the details, but I will tell you up front that the way that I'm going to have you do that is by commenting. So if you want to just say hi or ask a question or offer an opinion as we're going through this, just having a comment in the section is going to get you in the running for some giveaways. Okay, that said, let's return to our little picture here of the lovely lady in the vibrating slimming belt. And I always loved these pictures, right? This woman, you see her, she's exercising. She didn't have to take her heels off, okay? This is, to me, very much like what simple STEM is. So before I even move further into that, let me explain to you what I mean when I say simple STEM and what I don't mean. So there are lots of resources out on the market right now that are called simple STEM, and they are called simple STEM for different reasons. Some of them are called that just because the materials that are used and the teacher setup is simple. But when you get into the resource and you actually see the activity that the students are doing, it's rigorous and challenging. So as we're going through today, I'm not talking about that kind of simple STEM. I don't think there's anything wrong with keeping your materials simple and keeping setup simple for your teachers. That's always a good thing. And I'm also not necessarily saying that all of the rest of simple STEM is bad or that you shouldn't do it. But what we're going to be talking today, when I say simple STEM or quick and easy STEM, I mean when people ask, and people have been asking a lot as we've been going back to school, for STEM challenges or STEM activities that are easy, that can be done in a few minutes, that is to be done as a reward for early finishers, STEM that's fun, makes students happy, doesn't challenge them too much or make them upset, or, cause too much drama in the classroom. And I understand the human and especially the teacher desire for things that are quick and easy and don't cause drama in your classroom. But it's just like this exercise belt here. Is she really keeping tone and fit by using that exercise belt, or is she hoping that maybe that is going to help her avoid doing a deep, gnarly workout that really is the work you have to do in order to stay tone and fit, right? So there is a place, I think, for some of that kind of simple STEM, and we'll talk about some ways to approach this problem, as well as some different approaches you can take. Okay, so I'm not going to just talk about problems today. We're going to talk about solutions as well. And I'm not asking you to redo everything you have planned or throw out the things that you already have. We're not talking about any of that. There's a place and a time for all this stuff. I actually kind of think of it like much in the same way that Fruit Loops are part of a complete breakfast. Simple STEM can be part of a complete program, a complete curriculum that you're doing, but in isolation, the simple STEM, like the Fruit Loops, it's kind of like the least beneficial or nutritious part of your lesson plans, right? So again, we're here to reflect, not to judge, because God knows we get enough of that from politicians and the media and sometimes parents too. So we are not here about that. We are just here to reflect on our current practices. And I did get some questions, by the way. If you're subscribed to my email, I sent an email out yesterday talking about this live session coming up. And I had a couple questions and replies already, so I am going to address those at the end. Okay, so as I was saying, simple STEM is not the worst, but as like Angie just mentioned and someone before her too, and that comment fell off, so it didn't fall off, it's there, but I can't see them all right now. Maybe I can pull it up. Okay, great, perfect. I can see them now. Candy just said, I agree that STEM should challenge the students. Angie said, add rigor. Absolutely. We can do these things without really adding too much time to the lessons. It's just adding so much benefit to it. So let's think about, before we even get into that, let's think about, why is STEM such a buzzword? STEM challenges, STEM activities, a STEM elective, why is it a buzzword? The thing is, the reason it's become so popular is because it is a unique area of opportunity for us to give students opportunities to develop their critical thinking and problem solving. It helps them apply content in new situations in their actual lives. It helps them develop grit, perseverance, intellectual stamina, which I think is so important, and resilience. And it helps them work on the 4 C's of engineering, which if you aren't familiar with the 4 C's of engineering, there you go. There's a poster right there for you. So all of this goodness is really easy to achieve when you go through STEM activities, STEM challenges through the engineering design process from start to finish in a deep and rigorous way. Those things are not easy to accomplish. How do you help a student develop resilience and intellectual stamina with a 5-minute activity that you never discuss with them? It's just like that exercise belt, right? So let me just move. I've got little notes today to keep me on task, because if you've watched me before, you know sometimes I get off on a tangent. So the reason that I am personally obsessed with STEM challenges is because, okay, I'm going to try not to get dark or like apocalyptic on you right now, but the problems and the challenges that our students are going to face in their adult lives are unfathomable to us. We don't know really what we're preparing them for. If you think about the climate situation, AI, automation of jobs, we don't even really know what the job market's going to look like when our kids become adults. So how do we prepare them for a future that we can't see and we can't really know? To me, the way to do that is to help them become problem solvers, critical thinkers, people who don't give up at this first sign of struggle, because the struggle isn't the problem, it's the point, right, of STEM challenges. And that's why I think that these types of activities, when done well, are not just fun. They can be fun, but they don't only have to be fun. And I just can't think of another type of activity that we do in our classrooms that is more uniquely positioned to help our students develop the skills they need to become successful adults, especially given that we don't know exactly what that future is going to look like because technology is advancing so rapidly, right? So this is the time to do the gut check for yourself. Do you think really that you can help your students prepare for this unseeable, unknowable future with quick and easy, simple STEM? Probably not. Does that mean it's bad? Does it mean you shouldn't do it? Does it mean it's, there isn't a place for things that are just fun and enjoyable? Of course, there's a place and a time for all of that. But my concern, especially when it comes to this, is that a lot of resources and activities are misusing the term STEM, and it's confusing all of us and making it so that we can give ourselves a pass, sort of. So like we can just sort of like, oh, STEM is a good thing to do. I've heard it's a great thing to do. And here I'm doing this simple STEM, or I've made a little makerspace, and makerspaces aren't bad either. Tinker labs are not bad. All of these things, again, part of a complete breakfast. But when we bring these things into our classroom and then think that we're getting all of those benefits that we mentioned earlier just by doing that, by bringing something into your class that's called STEM, it's easy to give ourselves like a check or a pass, like I've done that thing and now I can move on with the rest of my day. When in reality, it's probably not really checking the boxes for the things that you have associated with the benefits of STEM. Much like the exercise belt, right? If you don't put in the time and the effort and the work, and you don't do real exercise, doesn't mean the exercise has to be like unpleasant. But if you're not doing real exercise, if you're just standing in place in heels and like letting a belt shake you, you're probably not going to get the fitness results that you're looking for, okay? My other concern is that life is not a sitcom. And I think that we feel so much pressure teaching because it's a high pressure job and it's an important job all the time. And more and more and more is being pushed onto us and pushed onto our kids at an earlier and earlier age. And that makes us feel like we need to fit it all in, pack it all in, get all these like discrete activities jam packed into our day. And it increases our students' inability to follow anything for any length of time, right? We talk about attention span issues, and a lot of that I believe, and I think we've seen evidence that comes from being on screens so much and the accessibility, the instant accessibility of so many things. And we've also seen a lot of studies done that have indicated how bad that is for brain growth and development. Now, we can't solve all of the world's problems, but we know as teachers, we're always trying, right? So I think it's really important to have longer sustained problem solving, because otherwise students aren't going to have the practice they need to develop those skills to stick with a problem over time. And a lot of the problems, again, that they're going to be facing as they go through adulthood are going to be complicated problems that can't be solved in 5 minutes, right? So we have to be creative with the way we find time and minutes to do these longer sustained, whether it's STEM challenges or project-based learning, just a longer in-depth focus on something over time. I feel like we're losing that in a lot of places because we're being so pressured to do that to hit all these standards in a certain amount of time. So now let's get into problem solving for ourselves, right? Because I told you I wasn't just going to come in here and do all the like gloom and doom and like tell you everything's bad, because it's not. It's just a time to reflect, to make sure that we are providing those longer, more meaningful and beneficial activities for our kids. So what should we do? What should we do if we've been sticking to our simple STEM or our quick and easy STEM that's very much like quick writes, by the way, with writing, which I know some of you know. I've mentioned it a lot here because I think it's an analogy that makes sense for a lot of us as English language arts teachers when we're teaching our kids to become good writers. If we only ever give them quick writes, they're not going through the entire writing process. They're probably never really learning, unless it's just by like some sort of miracle, how to revise and edit and develop their voice over time. Engineering design process is the same way. If we give them these like one and done STEM challenges or quick and easy STEM or simple STEM, and we never really go through the entire process start to finish, they're probably not going to get all the skills and all the benefits from going through all the deeper analytical skills of the engineering design process. So what should you do? First things first, let me move the 4 C's. I have a little audit. So I have 3 steps for you basically, but this first step actually has more steps in it. So it's kind of cheating. Okay. So first thing is to sort of audit yourself. What are you currently doing, or what are you planning to do going back into this next school year? And ask yourself these questions. How consistently are my STEM activities equitable, rigorous, collaborative, and how often are they discussed, questioned, and analyzed? So I'll go through each one really quickly. So equitable, what I mean by that is just, do all the students have an opportunity to engage with your STEM activities? Is it something that you only have in the room for early finishers? If so, I'd encourage you to give that some thought and see where you can make it accessible to all students at all times, because not every kid is an early finisher. We want to make sure that everybody gets a chance, right? Because just because they're not an early finisher doesn't mean they can't have huge benefits and even shine quite a bit during our STEM challenges. The next one, rigorous. To me, it's somewhat obvious, but are you giving your students actual challenges? So again, we talk about this desire to make things easy for ourselves and for our kids, and like, who wants drama during the day? Nobody does. But the struggle isn't the problem, it's the point. And we have to give our kids challenges that they might fail at, that there's a decent shot. Ask yourself, do I give my students challenges that I think maybe they can't do? That's a good thing. You want to be doing that more often than not. You need to make space and time to do that, because you also need to be able to recover and help students deal with, okay, great, now we've failed. What do we do next? There's a whole, I'm gonna get off on a tangent. I'm not gonna let myself. I'm coming back. But there are so many rich activities and discussions you can have after a failed design challenge. And guess what? Your kids are going to fail in their lives. And when we don't give them that safe space to fail and recover and become resilient, how do we expect they're ever going to build those skills, right? So we need to be brave ourselves in creating space and activities that our students are going to find difficult. They're going to get frustrated. They might cry. They might throw a fit or a tantrum. They might have problems with it, and that's okay and even desirable. So not everyone has to be that way, but you should be looking to embrace that rather than shy away from it and make something too easy. If it's too easy, they're not really getting anything from it. It's like, if you're lifting a 1 pound weight and you do that for your whole life, and you're not going to develop the same kind of muscles as if, maybe I'll move up to a 5 pound and see how that goes, right? We've got to really challenge ourselves as teachers and our students as well. Collaborative. Okay, one of the things that I see a lot of, and this is particularly in classrooms where they have STEM activities as options for early finishers, pretty much only. A lot of those are the kind of thing where, you finish early, you go and you pick up, something from a center or whatever, you bring it back, and usually that student's working on it alone. That doesn't mean it's bad, but the 4 C's of engineering include collaboration for a reason. Students need to learn to work together with partners and within groups to communicate their ideas, to also hear and understand others' ideas, and to try to put them together in a cohesive way. That can be challenging to do, but we need to give them those chances. They shouldn't only be working on STEM challenges alone and STEM activities in general. This last one is the most important of this set. How often and this is just the audit. This is the one thing you've got to do first before we even get to the other questions, but how often are your STEM challenges and activities discussed, questioned, and analyzed? A lot of the time, it can be tempting to get to the end of the STEM challenge and then you call time and then maybe you let them share their challenges and then you move on to the next lesson, the next subject, the next thing, right? And this is another area where we're losing so much of the benefit of the time that we've invested in having the students build in the first place. We hope that things are happening almost through osmosis because we feel so pressed for time. And I would recommend just giving yourself a pass. Give yourself a pass and extend the time to do something that's really beneficial. You don't have to probably do all the things exactly as you're doing them now. I know there's a lot of pressure, and I know there are a lot of pacing guides in your district. I know there are a lot of things that you feel like you are forced to do. And I would suggest that I felt that way too. And over time, I realized as I took more and more and more control over my classroom, that I had a little bit more flexibility than I thought I did. And the more time I spent on things that I thought were really valuable and knew my students needed in order to be successful in their current and future lives, the better they did on the tests anyway, and the administrators would leave me alone. Because these skills are so critical and crucial. And one of the things that I always recommend is trying to tie your STEM challenges in with multiple subject areas, particularly English language arts, because once you tie it in with English language arts, that gives you permission to take minutes back from ELA and give it to science and STEM. So I won't go off too much more on a tangent at that. I just saw your comment, Angie. I will absolutely mention this in our workshop. But this is one of my tricks for gaining time back to use on these valuable skills. So one of the things here that I'll just point out is discussion and questioning. So after all of the STEM challenges that we do, students share their designs and they ask each other questions and I ask them questions. So right away, we already know we have a lot of speaking and listening skills and standards being used right there. That's ELA. That's not the only ELA tie-in that I do, but that is inherently present in every STEM challenge I do. So I feel very confident taking some ELA time and giving it to this section of my STEM challenge so that I don't feel so rushed, that I'm not trying to do a STEM challenge in 15 minutes or 30 minutes. I know that's tougher if you're a multiple subject teacher or single subject teacher, I'm sorry. So if you're in middle school that, you have a bell that rings and that's how it is. I have some different schedules, some different options for you if you don't see your kids for more than 30 minutes a day, because that is a reality for many of us as well. But moving forward, the last thing I really want to say on this is the analysis. Are you giving your students time to actually think, reflect, and then share what they're learning and what they're imagining and thinking after the STEM challenge? What went well? What did not go well? What was the best feature of their design? What features did they see in other designs that they thought they looked promising or that they might want to try next time? What materials would they prefer to have used? There are a lot of different types of questions you can ask, and I prefer to do all three of these. And the analysis part is written for my kids. So I do discussion with the kids. They present. We question each other during those presentations. I give each group about 2 to 3 minutes to do that. So 1 minute to just straight present. Here's what we did. Here's how it works or how it doesn't work or how it was supposed to work. This was our plan. This is, we didn't finish it. This is what we would do if we had more time. They do all that kind of thing in a minute-ish. And then I do another 2 minutes where each person in that group takes a question from their peers and or from me. Then we do a class discussion. Sometimes this happens on a different day because, again, time is a real and practical issue for every teacher. So sometimes we'll do a whole group discussion on different days. And then we have the analysis, which is written. And I like to shake up the order of the class discussion and the analysis because some people are like me. I like to talk through things in order to sort of process my thoughts and get them together. And then when I go to write, I create better answers or more thoughtful answers because I've had an opportunity to talk through it. And a lot of people are the opposite. They like to sort of sit down in a quiet space with their thoughts, write them out, and then when they participate in the discussion, they're better prepared to do it because they've had time to organize their thoughts and really think about, well, what do I think? What's my opinion about this? Okay? So that's the first part. That's the audit. You need to audit what you're already doing. Is it equitable, rigorous, collaborative? And how often do we actually go through, discuss, and question and analyze? Because our kids are not going to get that through osmosis. They're not going to pick up on the patterns and the skills and the connections to science without you helping them get there. So when we talk about that simple STEM, the kind where kids are like going to like a center, taking something back to their desk, tinkering or playing for a minute, and then they put it back without ever communicating with anybody about it, without ever being pushed or questioned or provoked to think further on, they don't develop these skills. And they don't take that much more time. They don't take that much more time to do. So we want to definitely make lots and lots of time for these things where and when we can, and we do that by integrating different subject areas, especially if you're self-contained and you have the opportunity to have your kids the whole day. We can be very creative with our timing by integrating those subject areas, okay? And if this is freaking you out, if you're like, this is like stressing me out, I don't have enough time for this, don't feel like you've got to do it this way every time or, every week. Start by saying, you know what? I'm going to try to do a full-blown, like really deep and rigorous STEM challenge once a month or twice a month, and then build up. Because I know you're going to want to build up because it's so amazing to see the connections students make when you give them the actual time to actually make those connections, right? And learn how to do it and hear their peers doing it so they can sort of see what the thought processes look like of their peers and how they might be looking to make these new connections as they move forward. Okay, next thing. So, I want you to learn to be a very skeptical customer and consumer of STEM resources because this has become so trendy, and it should be, because when it's done well, we've already talked about all the things that can come from it. But because it's popular, there's money to be made, and where there's money to be made, people will start misusing that term and then putting STEM on activities that aren't really STEM. Some of them are more like crafts. Some of them give step-by-step directions on how to make something. That's not STEM. STEM is about problem solving against a criteria and constraints list. And still others will, think they sort of get it and, create STEM challenges based on something that, oh, I saw the spaghetti tower with the, marshmallows. I get it. I'll make a resource and I'll call it a STEM challenge and I'll sell it. And it might not go as deep and as rigorous as it could. And I want to be very delicate here because I don't like being negative or throwing shade, but I do have a real concern about the misuse of the term STEM and STEM challenges in particular, being someone who loves them so much, right? And I work really hard to try to make sure that they're robust and rigorous. So I want you to be really skeptical when you are thinking about bringing somebody else's resource that you picked up online somewhere into your classroom, and really look at it. If you already have it, it was a free resource, or it's something you already purchased, or it's something you're about to purchase, and you get it and you realize, it's not as great as I thought it was going to be, then add to it. And that's always something, we do as teachers anyway, because we always want to put our own spin on it. We always need to tailor something a little bit more for our own kids and our own situation. But just be really aware that just because something says it's a STEM activity or STEM challenge doesn't necessarily mean that it is. So you want to be looking for these little factors, right? Where students, like, if you see something that's called a STEM challenge and it comes with a step-by-step instruction list on how to make something, that is a red flag. That is not a STEM challenge. So be careful. That's all. I'm just saying be careful and be a skeptical consumer. And if you end up with something that you feel is subpar in your classroom, you can always add to it. You can always, throw away the list of, step-by-step instructions for your kids, because that's not problem solving, right? That's building IKEA furniture, which is, some would say, a problem in itself, but it's not a STEM challenge. Okay. Unless you don't have the directions, then it would be. Okay. Moving on. Last thing that I want you to really think about is, we don't have to really think about it. If you're sort of like, okay, well, now I'm sort of getting a sense of why simple STEM might be problematic, but I'm not really sure what more rigorous or robust or subject integrated STEM challenges should look like. I have a free webinar, and I'm going to link that out for you later. Okay. And it's called Secrets to Successful STEM Challenges. And it's about an hour and a half, because I think I answer some questions at the end, but I go through and explain this much more in depth. And rather than do that all again, I will just give you that link, and that will give you some good information that will help you out. Okay. Now I'm going to give you all those links in a moment, but I have 2 more things left to do today. I have some questions that came to me from my email subscribers. I will also check my comments here and see if I have any other questions. And then I have to tell you about the giveaway. Okay, so first question from my email was from Esther, and she said, I'm paraphrasing, I didn't write exactly what she said down, but what she was looking for was STEM that was simple to prepare, not a whole lot of supplies, but she still wanted it to be challenging and rigorous for her kids, which I am 100% down with. If you are familiar with me at all, I tend to use, I would say probably 80% at least of my STEM challenge materials that I use are things I had lying around anyway. And then maybe up to 20% I might have to buy, and probably can buy, from Dollar Tree, because I am frugal/cheap. And I don't see a need to go investing in all kinds of crazy equipment. I mean, that stuff's fun, but in a practical world, a budget is an issue, right? Okay, so what I would say to you, Esther, is you're right on track. I think that's totally great. One thing that I would say to do is, if you're looking to make purchases of STEM challenges, like from other people who have developed them, I recommend looking in their product description, whether that's on TPT or it's on their own page. Maybe they have sold on their own website. I always list all of the materials that are required on my product description, because I don't want anybody ever to buy something and then find out later, oh shoot, I needed marshmallows and I don't have them, or whatever the thing is, right? Or, oh, I needed to have, glue guns, but we don't use glue guns with my kids, or whatever. So look for that. And if it's not there, if it's not listed out for you, ask the person who's selling it. Send them a question and ask them for a materials list if you can't see it anywhere else. My feeling is they should always provide that, because otherwise you don't understand what your investment is money-wise. Because if you're going to spend, $3 or $4 on a STEM challenge and then find out there are materials required that are going to cost you another like $20, well, that might have made you not buy it in the first place, right? So that's why I think it's important to just leave it all out there, let people decide. But if you find something you like and you don't see that they've listed it, just ask them. I'm sure they'll send it to you. And then finally, on that point on materials, also be flexible. Just because I try to encourage people to do this as well. If something says you need, I don't know, masking tape, you can probably substitute out some other kind of tape, right? You might add in your own materials that aren't even listed there. You might substitute or modify. You should feel very flexible in doing that. Most STEM challenges give you a suggested list of materials, and many of them can be traded out and modified. But I am down with that idea. I do like the idea of simple STEM when talking about the materials used and the teacher prep. But for the students, you are 100% right. It should be rigorous and challenging. And then my second question, and this is the only other one I have from email, is from Miriam, and it says she wanted to know how to design simple activities according to model STEAM, and how are students assessed during the challenge and after the challenge. Okay, so designing simple activities, I think I do cover this a little bit more in depth in the webinar I mentioned, so you might want to watch that later. But I will say a lot of ideas will simply come from a problem in a story we're reading. There's a lot of fairy tale STEM. Meredith Momgeneer has these fairy tale STEM challenges, with 3 Little Pigs and stuff like that. Rapunzel, I think there are quite a few. That can start as a wonderful basis for creating STEM challenges, and that connects to your ELA, which is also another bonus, right? Problems you're having in your classroom. I had something one time where I wanted to display student designs, and I was running out of space on the tables, but I had bulletin board space, and the designs were small for this particular challenge we were doing. So a challenge there could be, to have the students, design a lightweight shelf out of index cards that we could connect to the bulletin board. So looking for everyday problems. You can find inspiration. On my YouTube channel, I have 52 STEM Challenge walkthroughs. You can get some inspiration from there. Everywhere. Check out the webinar for other ideas about that. And then, what was the other question? Oh, assessment. Oh, so glad you asked, Miriam. Assessment. Okay, I think you got to be really, really super careful with how you assess your STEM challenges. And a lot of us sort of just revert or default to wanting to grade their actual designs, which I think is not the right thing to do. And I have never, nor will I ever, assess a design of a STEM challenge. For me, it's all about process over product. I go more into this in the webinar as well. But that I do some informal assessment during the discussion, the Q&A as the kids are presenting. I look at their design analysis on the written forms that I use for every STEM challenge. And I don't grade it in terms of how deep their scientific analysis is at the moment. I use all 3 of those things to sort of gauge how it's developing and what kinds of questions I might ask to better help them move forward in those steps. In terms of how do I give them a grade for a STEM challenge, I give them a grade based on that form, just that they filled out the handout, that they made an honest attempt, and they answered all the questions. You know your kids, so you know if they're giving you the best of their ability or not. So I might give them, I usually just give them like a check mark if it's done. And then I do my informal assessments for the discussions. And I have a series of rubrics now that I also use that focus on different skills. And I might have a picture. I don't know if it's a big enough picture. Let me see. Let me just pull. It's not really a very big picture. Maybe this one's better. Okay. That's a little bit better. But I have a series of different rubrics, and they're set up based on whatever skills I really want to reinforce with my students. And at this point, I'm doing volunteer lessons and stuff, so it's dependent on what the teacher wants to reinforce with her students or his students. I do sometimes the 4 C's, the 4 C's of engineering. I give them just, on a scale of 1 to 4 in these different areas. I'll do sometimes what I call the STEM challenge cycle. So they get a 1 through 4 rating for each step of the cycle. Sometimes this involves their participation during the Q&A. Sometimes I'll give them extra bonus points if their discussion questions to each other and their answers and their participation is great. Sometimes I make that part of a rubric. If it wasn't part of the rubric, then sometimes I offer extra credit for those things. And sometimes we talk about it in terms of STEM ideals. So I know some of you don't know what that is either, because some of you are joining me for the first time. I think I have a poster of that too. Okay. Sometimes I have it hanging behind me. Today I did not. So sometimes I'll ask students to, and also with all of these rubrics, sometimes I'll have the students just self-assess. Sometimes I'll do the assessment. I don't grade everything. I don't think everything needs a grade. And I do think that it can be problematic for some students when they know everything is graded. And that can be in different ways. For some kids, it shuts them down. For some kids like me who are overachievers, it makes me not want to take risks. And so I play it safe with my designs if I think that there's a grade involved, where if there isn't, I might try some different things that are sort of weird or out there, outlandish, that might fail. So these are just things to keep in mind when you're thinking about assessing STEM challenges. It's really important to be thoughtful and reflective about what are you really trying to get out of doing STEM challenges with your kids? What do you want them to get from it? What skills are you wanting desperately for them to develop? Whatever those are, put it in a rubric or grab one of my rubrics. I will link that as well. So I have lots of links to share with you. I will make sure I do all of them afterwards. So it's the webinar, it's the rubrics, it's what else? I'll see what else I wrote down because I think there was something else. Okay, let's talk about the giveaway. Let me check and make sure if there's anything. No questions. Okay, just checking my comments to see if there are any questions there added. And there aren't, so we're good. Okay, giveaway. I am looking for what I'm giving away today. Okay, so first of all, you might be watching this after the fact, and it's okay because I'm going to do a giveaway tonight, Friday night, August 30th. But I'm also going to do monthly giveaways throughout 2019-2020 school year. So tonight, I'm giving away this bundle, the 7 Fall STEM Challenges. So this is a great place to get you started for this semester. And if you don't win it tonight, I do want to just mention this was a limited time sort of collaboration that I did with Rachel Lynette. And we decided that we were going to make this available for the month of August. So if you don't win it tonight and you really wanted it, make sure you buy it tonight or tomorrow, Saturday, August 31st, because on September 1st it disappears, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to randomly, I'm going to count up the comments, and let's see, it's 4:37 here on the West Coast, so I will give you until 8 p.m., so that gives people more time to come in. All you have to do is comment. Just throw in any comment, hi, how you doing, a question you have, maybe tag somebody who you think would enjoy this live session, and for time for reflection and anything, it doesn't matter. Put your comment and you'll be registered. And then I will come in on the comment thread at 8 o'clock tonight. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to count up the comments and I'm going to use a random number generator to pick a winner. And then I'm going to do that once a month for the rest of the school year. And I'm going to do that in 3 different areas because this video right now, this live session, is posted on Facebook. But later this evening, it's also going to be available on YouTube. And probably this evening or tomorrow, I'll also put it in my Teachers Pay Teachers store. And all 3 of those places, you have an opportunity to add a comment. And in all 3 of those places for the rest of the school year, I'm going to choose a winner. So you can keep going through and adding comments if you want to any 3 or all 3 of those platforms. And I'll just do different giveaways each month, okay? I'm enjoying this. Whoop, whoop. All right, Christina, thank you. Okay, so I think we're all set. I think I've gotten through everything I wanted to. I'm looking at my notes, and I'm looking pretty good. So that's it. I will announce a winner at 8 o'clock tonight, and then again once a month. And I guess I'll pop on live to do that, and I'll also do it in the threads. So I hope you guys have a beautiful holiday weekend, and I'm sure that I will see you sooner than later. So good night.